This is Inside the FLX from FingerLakes1.com. I'm Ted Baker, and before we get to our guest this morning, exciting news, it's almost here. Finger Lakes Today, our live 2-hour daily news, weather, talk, sports, information show, debuts this Monday, October 3rd, 7 to 9 a.m. If you can't watch live, many of the segments will be archived on the website, FingerLakes1.com. So be looking forward to that. We've got some exciting things ahead. And let's welcome our regular monthly guest from the Montezuma Audubon Center, Route 89 in Savannah. Chris Lajewski's back. Welcome back.
Good morning, Ted. Good to be with you.
So last time we talked about the muck race, where you put your teams together and there are different categories and you see how many species you can find. So how'd it go?
It was a big success. The 25th annual Montezuma Muck Race was held September 9th and 10th. Montezuma Audubon Center served as the hub for the entire event. We had the check-in there, all the volunteers were based there, and we had the closing ceremony at the end of the 24-hour birding competition. We had 36 teams, 150 participants. Donations are still coming in, but I talked to the treasurer of the Friends of the Montezuma Wetlands Complex the other day. He said we are well on track to break our goal of $12,000 raised for the Friends organization, and all that money goes right back into habitat restoration, environmental education programs across the Montezuma Wetlands Complex. It was a beautiful 24-hour period. It was about 80 degrees, dry conditions. We had 6 collegiate teams, which is really exciting. Most of them were from Cornell. There was a Finger Lakes Community College team. 4 family teams, including my family team, participated. So it was great to see so many young birders coming out to Montezuma and getting involved in this. We've had many folks that have done just about all of the muck races over these 25 years. In fact, we've had one individual, Bob Spahn, from Rochester, New York, who's participated in all 25, and we paid recognition to him for that accomplishment. To summarize, I guess we had 180 species found across the entire 24-hour period by all 36 teams, which is amazing. And I think the highlight for me was when one of my daughters and we were birding out down at the National Wildlife Refuge, and we saw this bald eagle come down right down to the water's edge and grab a fish. And I heard my daughter's jaw drop on the ground, and she said, "Oh, wow." Now, she's a teenager, so when I can have that experience with my daughter as a 14-year-old, that is just amazing. And so just a great event, and one of our favorites at the Montezuma Audubon Center.
That's one of the great pleasures of birding, is you never know on any given day what you're going to see. You're out there and you're seeing species you've seen before, and then all of a sudden you say, hey, what's that? And it's something new.
Especially this time of year. We picked this mid-September time frame for the muck race because of the incredible migration that is going on. We're at the peak of the songbird and shorebird migration, so we've got about a dozen warblers and vireos coming through, another dozen shorebirds coming through. These are the sandpipers and plovers. We had peregrine falcon, and then another falcon species called the merlin, which were very abundant. We had American kestrel. All the bald eagles were at the refuge, as well as up on the state land in Savannah. Yeah, one of the fun things about birding is being out with family and friends, and the awe and wonder about what's going to be seen.
What's the key to seeing lots of different kinds of species? Let's say I want to see as many species as I can within a few miles of my house in Rushville. Is it identifying different habitats?
That's exactly right. Yeah, it's going into forest habitat, grassland, marsh, open water, bottomland, swamps, because there are species that focus and primarily live in a particular habitat. So the more habitats you visit, the greater variety of species you will see. Now, don't forget about our urban areas or residential areas, because there are some species, like our year-round residents, the downy woodpecker, northern cardinal, black-capped chickadee, tufted titmouse, that will be in those areas, as well as out in the rural, more natural ecosystems. But if you have some feeders, bird feeders out, you have a bird bath out, you're probably going to have some of the year-round residents, which are also important bird species.
What's the best way to look for birds? Do you focus your binoculars and kind of work a grid up and down? What seems to work better for me is I kind of look with my eyes, and then when I see something, then I try to focus in on it.
When I come into a habitat, I first just stand still, look, and listen. What am I seeing? What am I hearing? What are the conditions like? And then once I start to hear some birds, this time of year with all the foliage on the trees and the shrubs, you're probably going to be hearing the birds before you see them. So listening is very important. That's why I call it birding and not bird watching.
Right.
Birding. And so birding, keying in on those little chips and chirps, maybe little songs coming from the songbirds right now, and then moving into that area, again, just with your eyes, don't use binoculars yet, and look for the bird that might be flitting about or going after some insects for a meal. Then, once you see the bird with your eyes, use your binoculars. If you need some assistance to find the field marks, see all the colorations, the wing bars, the colors on the wings, what color is the head, then you can use binoculars. Go to your field guide if you're not sure which one it is. Go to an app called McMullen. You can use that, and helps you identify the birds that are out there in that habitat.
And then another factor is to know where to look. Some birds are closer to the ground, some are higher in the trees, some, your creepers and nuthatches and woodpeckers are right on the trunk.
That's right. I've been leading several tours over the last couple weeks, both driving tours as well as some kayaking tours. And I was hearing some little chips and chirps coming from the dense foliage. And I use the technique called pishing, which I've talked about in the past. And it's just a sound that you make with your mouth to encourage birds to come out of the foliage, give you a view of maybe just 5 or 10 seconds before they see it's just the bird nerd once again, and then they go back into the forest, doing back whatever they were doing. So pishing, it sounds like psh, 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 psh. That's a sound, an alert sound that some birds like the wrens make when there is a disturbance in their habitat. Maybe there's a potential predator, a hawk, Cooper's hawk, red-tailed hawk in the area. They want to alert other birds in their flock about this predator and come down. Let's mob this bird together, hopefully push it out of our habitat. So when you make that sound artificially, birds will respond to that, come out to investigate, see there is no predator here, and then go back into the forest.
All right, do that one more time, because I'm the worst pisher in the world, and every time I do it, the birds laugh and go back into the woods.
There's no right.
When I went kayaking with you, you did it, and like all the birds in the upper Midwest came to us.
There's no right or wrong way to do it. It takes practice. Be loud. You got to be confident in it. I use 3 different techniques. Something like that. It doesn't always work. During migration, it does tend to work, especially if you find that mixed flock of black-capped chickadees and warblers and vireas. They do come down. We had an amazing experience where yellow-rumped warblers came out of the forest with the black-capped chickadees during a paddle last week, and we had about a dozen of them hanging out right on the edge of the forest before they went back in. So be loud. Just practice with it. It's okay to do during migration. It's okay to do limitedly during the winter months. We do not pish, though, during the breeding season. That's something ethically that is shouldn't be done, because birds should be focused on raising their chicks, taking care of the eggs, taking care of the chicks. They don't need to listen and respond to and take resources just by listening to a birder out there pishing.
So where are we in migration? It's funny, it's all of a sudden it hit me a few weeks ago that the robins were gone. I mean, robins all over my backyard all summer, and I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks ago I realized there weren't any anymore.
We are at the tail end of the songbird and shorebird migration. They're still working their way through the Finger Lakes region. You can still find a fair number of warblers and sandpipers and plovers, but we're at the tail end. I typically think of October 1st as being pretty much the end of that migration for those species, because we've had a significant number of cold fronts come through, and now with more of a northwest wind blowing, birds are taking advantage of that and riding that wind to their wintering grounds. The birds that we are still seeing, songbirds and shorebirds, they were breeding up in the boreal forest of Canada, Arctic tundra, and they're going to be working their way down to at least Central America, some as far south as South America for the winter, about 3,000 miles away. Very impressive journey. With those species leaving us, we are going to start seeing more and more waterfowl coming in to the Finger Lakes region. Ducks, geese, and swans. About 36 species of waterfowl will be migrating through the Finger Lakes region and the Montezuma Wetlands Complex as we go through the next 2 months. So October, November, great times to visit the National Wildlife Refuge, Montezuma Audubon Center, and all the state land up in Savannah.
Now, we have a major hurricane getting set to hit Florida maybe in the next few days. Are there some flyways that go through there, and how might that affect migrating birds?
We have seen in the past tropical systems come up through the Gulf Coast states, and on occasion, one of those southern birds gets caught in that wind storm and gets blown to the north. We assume that the reason why we had the roseate spoonbill and the wood stork in the Montezuma Wetlands Complex last year was because they got caught up in one of those early tropical systems. We don't know what's going to happen. We hope that everyone stays safe down in Florida and the southeast, everyone is impacted by this, but it should be interesting to see what gets carried northward as this tropical system comes up the coast. There might be some Gulf Coast birds, some Florida birds that get caught up in the wind. There may also be some Atlantic coast birds, birds that are up here in the northeast, but they're out on the Massachusetts coastline, Cape Cod area, or Long Island. As the system comes up north, it's going to be blowing a northeast wind that might push birds inward. So over the next week to 2 weeks, 3 weeks, could be very interesting for birding across the Montezuma Wetlands Complex. And we'll be sure to keep everyone updated through our Facebook page, Instagram, and on our website.
You work to customize programs with scout troops and also with schools back in session, and how can a school arrange a field trip?
School is in session. We're seeing schools coming out to Montezuma Audubon Center already for field trips. We've had about a dozen schools already reach out to us for field trips just for this fall season. That's tremendous. It's something we have not seen over the last pandemic. So schools are able to visit us, which is tremendous. And we are engaging students from the kindergarten level all the way through 12th grade, and even college students are coming out and visiting us. They can go to our website, montezuma.audubon.org, and click on our programs and events button, and that's where teachers and administrators can find a list of our school field trips. We do everything from nature detectives for more of the kindergarten, first grade students. We have a Montezuma wetlands program for the 3rd, 4th, 5th grade. We also have a Montezuma migration sensation program for that same level. And then for the older students, the middle school and high school students, we have a living environment segment as well as a habitat restoration project. These are typically an hour and a half to 2 hour long programs. They are essentially free to schools because just about all of the upstate New York and Finger Lakes region schools are Title I schools, and therefore they qualify for a grant through New York State Parks. It's the Connect Kids to Parks grant program. So that grant will cover all the program fees that we charge per student, plus it reimburses the school for the transportation costs, which is very high right now. So it covers the cost of the gasoline as well as the bus driver that brings the kids to Montezuma Audubon Center and back to school. So again, montezuma.audubon.org, click on our programs and events. We've had many of the Finger Lakes region schools already reach out to us, and looking forward to reaching schools way out in the Rochester area as well as out in the Syracuse community.
We're getting very close to the start of deer hunting season. How do birders and hunters coexist in the woods in the fall?
Yeah, well, we have upcoming deer season. October 1st is going to be the opener of the bow hunting season for deer. That's coming up this Saturday morning. And even though almost the entire northern Montezuma Wildlife Management Area is huntable, The one area with the exception is Montezuma Audubon Center. And also the National Wildlife Refuge, for the most part, is hunted. However, there are a couple areas that are off limits at this early season of the deer hunting season. There are still opportunities for people to get out and enjoy birds, enjoy the fall foliage that we have coming on strongly now at Montezuma. So again, if folks come to Montezuma Audubon Center and they're looking for a safe area to go for a walk, we have 200 acres, 2 miles of trails. There is no deer hunting around our trail system. All the other state land is huntable up in Savannah. The National Wildlife Refuge has a couple areas that are not going to open to deer hunting until later on in the fall season. So Eskerbrook and South Spring Pool, very popular walking destinations for birders. Deer hunting doesn't start until November 1st there. So birders have the entire month of October to enjoy those areas. The Wildlife Drive is going to remain open until the end of November, and there's no deer hunting through November there. So starting December 1st, Wildlife Drive closes and deer hunters are allowed to go in there. And then also the Seneca Trail and Headquarters area will remain hunt-free, and birders are welcome to go there right on into mid-December. December 12th is the opening of the deer hunting season around that area in Seneca Falls. So bottom line is be safe. Make yourself known. If you are in one of these areas where potentially deer hunters are, wear blaze orange. We've never had any conflicts between birders and deer hunters. We don't expect any this year. Montezuma is a great place for everyone to enjoy the great outdoors, whether you're birding, whether you're hunting deer, or just going out for a little nature walk with family and friends. So there's something for everyone.
Upcoming events, Thursday afternoon, 2 days from when we're doing this, a birding tour, and of course during the pandemic you did the drive-along tours, so people now have the option. They can go in the van or they can drive along and get the narration on the radio.
That's right, and I'm excited to be leading this tour on Thursday, September 29th, 4:30 in the afternoon. We'll go till about 7 o'clock, which is right about sunset this time of year. $10 to follow our van in your own vehicle, $15 if you want to ride in the van. There are only 2 spots available. I checked this morning. 2 spots, 2 seats in the van available still for this Thursday afternoon's tour. We still have about 4 or 5 vehicles that can register and follow behind our van. It's going to be a great day for birding. It's going to be beautiful weather by the time we get to Thursday. It should dry out. We've had, again, significant north to northwest winds blowing over the last several days now, and I would expect even more waterfowl to be coming in, 3 dozen or so species of waterfowl moving back into the Finger Lakes region. So everything from the trumpeter swans are getting more concentrated. We're seeing more of the migrant Canada geese now coming down into the area, so that's in addition to the residents that have always been here. More of the falcons will be coming in, more duck species, very exciting to see all the teal, American black duck, northern pintail, so many others are going to be coming through. And I'm going to be taking folks to about 3 or 4 different birding hotspots. I'm going to be monitoring the situation and the conditions over the next 2 days, taking people to the best of the best birding spots, both at the Montezuma National Wildlife Refuge as well as on the state land in Savannah. So it'll be about a 2.5 hour or so experience. We'll have binoculars for folks, and I'll have a spotting scope out there when we get out of our vehicles at those 3 or 4 destinations and enjoy the birds together.
And also this is late afternoon, so you'll be in
right.
that sundown period when all the birds come into roost. I mean, it's impressive, both when they come in and then the morning when they all take off in flocks of tens of thousands.
We're seeing more sandhill cranes during this period of time, this late afternoon, early evening hours. The tour is likely going to wrap up down at the Knox Marcellus Marsh, and that's where we've been seeing 12 to 2 dozen sandhill cranes coming into roost for the night. I would expect that as we go through October and November, that number of sandhill cranes will only increase. Last year we had about 350 sandhill cranes in that Knox Marcellus Marsh of the National Wildlife Refuge. So it'll be exciting to see the habitat change and the bird species respond to that.
And this Saturday, in your role with the Onondaga Lake Conservation Corps, you have a program that features rare orchids and some of the wetlands that have been restored around Onondaga Lake.
That's right. We're proud to welcome in Joe McMullen, who is a botanist in central New York. He's been studying wetlands and plants and botanical issues for the last 45 years. So knowledgeable, very involved in the Onondaga Lake cleanup and the restoration effort. So we're going to be welcoming him to the Honeywell Onondaga Lake Visitors Center on this Saturday, October 1st at 10 o'clock in the morning. He is going to talk about his interesting recent find of a rare orchid called the fragrant lady's tresses. This is a beautiful white flowering orchid that's rarely found. In fact, this was the first known sighting in New York State. And Joe found it, and so he's going to talk about that experience, talk about the plant. It's typically found in mid-Atlantic to southeastern bog and marsh habitats, but he found it in the Onondaga Lake area, so he's going to talk about that experience. And then after the talk at the Visitor Center, we're going to go for a walk down to explore some of the recently restored wetland habitats at Onondaga Lake. In addition to his botanical knowledge and experience, Joe is also an amazing birder and naturalist, so he's going to be highlighting the birds that are migrating through all those wetlands at Onondaga Lake. He's going to talk about the restoration effort and how Audubon's Onondaga Lake Conservation Corps has mobilized the central New York community and brought people out to help with the restoration and also help them engage in outdoor recreation activities like these hikes, guided kayaking tours, and as well as snowshoeing activities.
And then that same Saturday, this Saturday, October 1st, you have a really neat program at Hemlock Lake, one of the more remote of the Finger Lakes.
That's right. Happy to announce this first ever program that's going to be led by our colleague at Montezuma Audubon Center, Kristen Moore. This Saturday, October 1st at 2:15 p.m., she's going to be leading a short half-mile walk through part of the Hemlock State Forest down to the south end of Hemlock Lake. And she's going to incorporate a nature journaling activity. All the participants who register for this event will get a large nature journal, and they're going to be guided through the forest, enjoying the trees and the wildflowers in bloom, of course all the birds and all the wildlife that are there. There's a lot of cultural history in this section of the state forest, so she's going to be talking about that as well. Registration is limited and required, and we do have a link on our website, montezuma.audubon.org. Folks can register for this program and all of our programs right there. And then following this half-mile walk and nature journaling activity that she's going to lead, we're welcoming folks to go over to a local winery called Eagle Crest Winery, which is right down the road there, for an optional tasting. It's not required, it's not part of the registration fee or process here, but those folks down there at Eagle Crest are well aware of their position on the lake and the nearby bald eagle nest, which was the last nest in New York State just 50 years ago.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yes, we're right at the south end of Hemlock Lake. And so that's coming up here. We've got so many other activities planned throughout the fall season. A great time of year to get out with family and friends for birding, for hiking, for driving. It's going to be a lot of fun.
All right, excellent. Montezuma.audubon.org. Chris, thanks as always. Appreciate it. Look forward to our next talk.
It's always a pleasure, Ted. Thank you.
Coming up in just about an hour from now, the season debut of Kenny's Two Pennies here on FingerLakes1.com. And again, once Monday, October 3rd, the premiere of Finger Lakes Today, our brand new daily show from 7 to 9 a.m. Looking forward to that. Thanks for watching Inside the FLX today on FingerLakes1.com.